Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Moto. In today's video, I'm going to switch it up a little bit from TW200 videos, and I'm going to review my Ducati Monster. So this is going to be a quick owner's review of my 2020 Ducati Monster 1200S. I purchased this in New York about a year and a half ago, and we'll take you for a little spin, and I'll tell you what I like about it. Alright, so on the bike, turning the key, as you can tell, the beautiful Ducati logo shows up, cycles through all its lights. Let's start this bad boy up. Classic Ducati noise. This 1198cc, I believe, is a beautiful engine, and it's a lot of fun. So, just going to go over the dash really quickly. A lot of people say it's small. I don't really mind it. This is kind of the first high-end sport bike or naked bike that I've had, so maybe there's better dashes out there, but for me, it shows everything I need. It's colored and it works well. Also, I know there's a lot of people that have problems with seeing their dashes in the sunlight. I'm basically in direct sunlight right now and I can see it totally fine. And the dash will show you all sorts of things: ABS, Ducati traction control, wheelie control, your light mode. You know, it shows you can cycle with this button right here. And if you go up, it cycles the one on the left. So trip 1, trip 2, range, trip time, total miles, and then back to trip 1. And then if you go down on this, it'll cycle the one on the right. Consumption, average. This is real-time average, which is pretty cool. Your speed average, your air temperature, and then it goes back to that. And then also you can change the different modes as long as you're going slow. I'm not sure exactly what speed it's under, but if you're stopped, or I think it's like 2 or 3 miles an hour, you can click enter and go to your different modes. You have sport, touring, and urban. And urban definitely dumbs down the engine a lot, but it's still a quick bike. But I like to ride in urban when it's raining and stuff like that. And then if you hold down the enter button for a couple seconds, it'll bring up the menu, and you have all sorts of things like your riding mode, display, pin code, your daylight running light control. You have a lap timer, unit settings, date and clock. It shows Bluetooth here, but I don't think this actually has Bluetooth. This might be for different bikes, because I know they use this screen for other bikes in their lineup. It also has service intervals, info, tire settings, and then that's about it. All right, so without further ado, let's exit out of this and let's go for a little ride. People are working out on their boats here today. It's a beautiful Sunday. Power washing the boats, making them look good. Boat's got a sticker on it that says worth every penny. Gotta love it. So like I said, I've had this bike for about a year and a half. I've put around 2,600 miles on it, and I love every second of it. Change the screen back real quick. I like it to display my range. And then if we go down here, I like the air temperature, but that's just me. So usually I ride this bike in sport mode, and sport mode definitely beefs up the engine, or it allows the engine to go to its fullest potential. There's very little electronic limiters, and I've also turned ABS down to 2, Ducati traction control off, and then Ducati wheelie control off. And like I said, depending on the riding conditions, I'll definitely change it. It's nice having the option to throw it into touring or urban mode, because right now in sport mode, the throttle it's very, you got to be careful. It'll lift the front end up like nothing. Even in second gear, it'll lift the front end up without clutching up or anything like that. So in traffic, if you're commuting, I could definitely see why touring mode would be much better, because it kind of slows the response of the throttle a little bit, and it just makes for a nicer riding experience if you're going to be on the bike for a while and in a lot of stop and go traffic. But usually if I'm riding back roads, this bad boy is going to be in sport mode. That's just how I like it. I want the full oomph of the bike, and it definitely delivers. So the only modification that I've done to this bike is just the New Rage Cycles fender eliminator kit, and I like it a lot. My only problem with that is, for some reason, the left blinker in the back, it doesn't work, and I've only had it for about a year. I talked to the dealership that I purchased the bike from, and they recommend me going through New Rage Cycles to see if they'll send a replacement one. But that was kind of a bummer, but it's not the Ducati's fault at all. Now that we're sitting at this light, a perfect thing to talk about is how hot this bike gets. If you're going to be commuting and you live in Texas or any areas that get pretty hot, you want to keep in mind, Ford GT, nice. You want to keep in mind that it's going to be a hot motorcycle to sit on in traffic. You can really feel it radiating the heat, around your legs. We'll jump on the highway here to show you guys what it's like. But yeah, it's a warm motorcycle for sure. When you're riding, you don't really notice it, but if you're at a stop sign or a red light or something like that, you'll notice it. Give it a little bit of beans. Pass that guy. Okay, this Porsche wants it. Oh man, woo! So there's a very specific power band on this motorcycle, and it reaches it very quickly. And basically, it's around like 5,000 or 6,000 RPMs. When you give it gas, it kind of winds up, but when it hits that power band, it lets off this very particular sound, and it sounds absolutely amazing, and it just pulls you. It pulls, and it doesn't stop. It's freaking awesome. So unfortunately, there's a little bit of traffic here, but we'll see if I can show you guys what it's like. So I've taken this bike to school, I've taken it to work. It's a great commuter bike. Obviously it's an expensive commuter bike, so that's something to keep in mind. But as far as comfort goes, the naked bikes they're great. I've had a 821 Monster, and that bike was awesome as well. I honestly prefer commuting on something like this over a Harley. Now that's just me, but I like having the sensation or the feeling that I'm in more of a controlling position of the bike. On the Harley, you're so much more laid back, and you kind of feel like the Harley is in control. Whereas this, you know, I'm on top of the bike. I'm in a not an aggressive stance, but it's definitely more aggressive than a Harley. You know, I'm a little more upright, but a little bit leaned over. My legs are bent in, and you know, it's a good overall riding experience. All right, we'll give it a little bit of beans here. This is second gear, 57. Okay, slow it down. So that is the power that this bike has. I don't want to do that too much because it will very quickly get you in trouble. You know, if you have a racetrack near you, this bike would be great. Obviously, sport bikes are probably a little bit better for tracks, but you know, if you want a bike that's going to be able to go to and from work comfortably and also be able to take it on the track and smoke a lot of bikes, because this is by no means a slow motorcycle, Ducati Monster 1200S, that's where it's at. And the difference between the 1200 versus the 1200S, there's not a lot of differences. This came with the quick shifter up and down from Ducati. It also comes with front and rear Olin suspension, and I gotta tell you, the Olin suspension is really nice. It's fully adjustable in the front and rear, and it's perfect when you need it to. It's soft going over bumps, and it soaks them up really well, but then around corners it feels stiff and secure and planted, and it's a good feeling, you know, having that kind of suspension on a bike like this, because it's got a lot of power, and if you're going to be using it around corners and stuff like that, you're going to want some good suspension. So sitting in traffic like this when we're just putting along, the engine temperature definitely will rise. It's at like 214 right now. It'll go up to like 220, something like that. So if you have a bike like this, don't be too concerned, because my bike has gotten pretty hot, and you know, I do its oil changes and everything as according to the owner's manual. But it's a big engine, you have to keep in mind, and it likes a lot of airflow. So you know, it likes going fast. It doesn't really like going slow like this, but it'll definitely heat up a little bit. The throttle on this bike feels so good. It's a ride-by-wire throttle, and it's super responsive. You know, just a little crack of throttle, and okay, we're going. So it feels really, really nice. Beautiful day. Everybody's got their boats, getting ready for the summer. Gotta love it. So as far as power goes on this bike, you're basically gonna get power in every gear, and basically it doesn't matter what RPM you're in. So second and third gear on this bike are probably the most powerful in my opinion. They absolutely rip your face off. We'll drop down to second. I don't want to go too close to this guy, but just give it a little bit of beans, and it goes. It goes, and it doesn't stop. What is this guy doing? He's braking. Look at this. We're gonna go around him. What are you doing, bro? Give it a little throttle, and there goes the front end. Absolutely nutty, this machine. So if you're a new rider, no, I don't recommend it. I'm sorry. It's just, not only is it powerful, you know, and if you're a really conservative rider and you're in urban mode, maybe you can handle the power. It's still a lot of power in urban mode, especially if you haven't ridden before. But one of the main things, in my opinion, of why not to get this kind of bike is because of how expensive it is. An exhaust for this bike is going to be super expensive, like $2 or $3 grand if you drop it and you mess it up, and any parts for that matter are going to be expensive. And as a beginner, you're a lot more likely to drop your motorcycle, and that's totally okay. I've dropped bikes before, you know, it happens. But when you're on a almost $20,000 machine like this, it's not a good day if you drop it. not only are the parts expensive, but if you plan on bringing it into a Ducati mechanic, that's going to be expensive too. I'm pretty sure my mechanic that I go to charges like $120, $125 an hour. Maybe that's not a lot for some of you, but for me, I'm 23, I'm a college student, that's a lot of money. So another thing to talk about in this slow traffic is the bike's weight. When it's going more than 15 or so, you don't really notice it. You know, if you tip it over a lot, you'll definitely notice. But I really notice this weight when I'm moving the bike around, like in my garage or something like that. No. I hate when people do that. They come to the last second and then try and cut you off. No. No, thank you. You can go behind me. So back to the weight. So yeah, I mean, when I'm around you know, 15 miles an hour and under, you'll notice the weight. It's a heavy bike. It's like 460 something pounds. I'll leave it up on the screen. And another thing, as a beginner, you know, that's a heavy motorcycle. You can get like an R3 and it's gonna be way less heavy, and it's a lot more easy to learn on and maneuver. But in the back roads and cruising on the highway at higher speeds, that weight kind of plants you, in my opinion, and it really helps with getting blown around by like semis or tractor trailers. And you know, it definitely feels like a very planted bike. The Pirellis that this bike sits on are absolutely amazing. I have had no issues with them after like 2,600 miles. They work really good. They get super grippy, especially when you warm them up a little bit. We'll get off this exit because I don't want to be in this traffic much longer. Oh boy, that'll make your heart drop for sure. It's a fast machine. You know, off the line, this thing absolutely shreds it. We'll drop a gear here real quick and I'll show you, just to 45, and then oh my god, it's 45 to 80 in like, I don't know, it felt like a millisecond. I know it's not, but it's a fast bike. You know, off the line, forget about it. I don't think there's any car, if you're a good driver, that'll beat you. Maybe like a Tesla or something like that, but most cars, unless they're like a hyper super whatever space mobile, you're probably gonna win. So if you're a racer boy, you don't have to worry about that. And what's great about this bike, especially on back roads, is it's got plenty of torque to pull you out of those corners, even if you don't approach the corners well. Speed bump, didn't even feel it. Olin suspension for the win. But yeah, it just rips you out of the corners like nothing. You know, even if you end up going too slow or you're in the wrong gear, it doesn't matter. This thing will pull you out no problem. And in my opinion, this is probably more fun on back roads than a super sport. And super sports are super fast, obviously, don't get me wrong, but you know, with the seating position and also just the amount of torque you're gonna have in the lower RPMs, you're gonna have a lot more fun on the back roads than a super sport. If you're on the 600, you know, you're really gonna have to wring those out to get their full potential. And with this bike, you know, you could be at 3,000 RPMs and it's like, okay, let's go, you know. So I know Ducati released the 959 Monsters, or the Monster Plus or whatever it's called, and that looks like a really cool option. Obviously it's not going to have like the same kind of tried and true heritage like this with the trellis frame and the engine, but that bike looks like a lot of fun, and for the price I really don't think you can beat it, to be honest. You know, you're getting a 900cc motorcycle for like 11 or 12 grand. It's a Ducati, it's made in Italy, it's gonna have Brembo brakes, you know, good suspension. It's got a DFT display, which is a little bit nicer than this one. It's actually updated from this one. So if you're looking at a bike like that, you know, I say go for it. But if you want the cream of the crop, you want the fastest one you can get as far as monsters go, 1200S, it's hard to beat. I know there's some people that don't like the headlight. I feel like it's either you like it or you don't. I don't mind it. I think the daylight running light, the LED little strip, looks really good. And what's great about that is you can turn it on and off with just this button right here, and that'll turn on your halogen, because for some reason Ducati wants to put a halogen and LEDs in this bike. I don't know why, but it'll turn off your halogen and it'll put on the LED running light, and it'll show you on the screen here what mode you're in. So a couple things to consider before buying a Ducati, especially a more expensive Ducati, is you're going to be looking at a lot of money for insurance. This is by far the most expensive insurance I have ever paid on a motorcycle, and it's definitely worth it. I do have full coverage on this machine, but you know, it's expensive. It's a lot of money, and you got to be prepared to you know, pay that, because you want to have insurance on a bike like this, and you want to always have insurance no matter what bike you're riding. So to go over the brakes, the Brembos, the dual Brembos in the front, I think they're M50s. They're huge. They stop like you wouldn't believe. It's by far the best braking motorcycle I've had. You know, comparing it to the 821 Monster, it has better brakes than that. These are like the cream of the crop right now as far as brakes go. I believe these are also the same ones that are on the Ducati V4. And the rear brake is definitely fine. You know, obviously it's not as strong as the front, but here's the rear brake right here. So it does what it needs to do. With all the electronics on this bike, it'll definitely help you ride more confidently. And you can really push yourself and see what this bike can do and also what you can do. As far as mileage goes on this bike, I do pretty decent mileage. I want to say I get like 50 or 60 miles to the gallon. And that's not bad at all. But obviously it depends on how you're riding it. You know, if you're putting along or whatever in third gear, you're not going to be slurping down a lot of gas. But, you know, if you're going to be on this thing, you're going to notice how quickly you go through gas. So as far as maintenance goes on this bike, you know, I know it's Ducati and they're more prone to mechanical failures than something like a Japanese bike like Yamaha or Honda, but at the same time, you know, it's still a pretty well made bike. I haven't had any issues with it. I've brought it into the dealership for a first service once, and that was basically it. It was a little bit pricey, but you know, it was worth it because they check not just the oil, they go through the bike and check the braking, they check everything. You know, it just gives you like a little bit of a sense of security, I guess. This is where this bike shines, on these back roads. Oh boy, slow her down. It's so hard to not want to just rip the throttle and just let it go, you know. So I think I've gone over basically everything as far as this bike goes. A couple things I wish it came with were more LED lights. Like I said, it does have the daylight running light, but it doesn't have a headlight that is LED. It just has the halogen, and then the daylight running light is LED. Also, the blinkers are not LED, so kind of a bummer. Not the end of the world. It's something you can change out, but obviously parts on this bike are going to be fairly expensive, and for the price you pay, I kind of wish it had that. And if I were to upgrade anything else on this bike, I'd probably do different mirrors. The mirrors are fine. I can see behind me. I do have to do the kind of chicken arm thing, but you know, I can see behind me okay. They definitely vibrate at higher speeds, but you know, this bike vibrates at higher speeds. That's just the kind of heritage of a Ducati, I guess. And then other than the mirrors, I'd probably change the exhaust. The exhaust sounds great, but if you want a little more pep out of it and you want it to sound just a little bit nicer, I'd probably upgrade it. As it is, when I downshift, so I'll do it here, there's nobody behind me. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it is popping. It's got the dual tip exhaust and it looks good, and I love how it sounds. But I can only imagine with a upgraded exhaust that will sound even better, and it'll really open up this bike. Yeah, this bike is a lot of fun on these back roads like this. Absolutely love it. Oh, it's fun. Yo, what's up, dude? And then come to a stop sign here, clutch in, we'll brake right now. Oh yeah, that'll slow you down. So the quick shifter on this Ducati works really well. It's a pretty authoritative click. You know, you really feel it. It pops into gear and it just rips. I've talked to a couple people in my comments, and they definitely say that there's other bikes that have better quick shifters. I've actually never experienced other bikes with quick shifters. All the bikes I've had have not had one except this one. I did have one on my 821S, but it's the same quick shifter that's on this bike. So if you're in the market for a Ducati Monster, whether it's the newer ones that just came out or something like this, I say check it out. A lot of Ducati dealerships will actually let you test drive their motorcycles, which is pretty nice because when you compare it to the Yamaha or Honda dealerships, at least the ones near me, they don't really allow that. So I would definitely recommend hopping on one, checking them out for yourself. You know, if you're in the market for an Italian motorcycle, I love this bike. I would recommend it to basically anybody. Obviously, if you're a beginner, I would say probably not, but you know, that's just me. All right, I'm gonna stop and just do a quick like 0 to 60. This is with Ducati, traction control off and wheelie control off. 3, 2, 1. Oh lordy. Slow down, slow down, slow down. All right. I love that Ducati quick shifter. The downshifts are so nice. Country Wine and Spirits, nice. So guys, that will be it for me. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. If you're in the market for a Ducati Monster, go to your dealership, check them out. I highly recommend it. I've had a lot of motorcycles, and I'd probably say that this is one of the most fun as far as commuting and just ripping around in the back roads. Obviously, I love me a good dual sport, but if you're a street rider and you want to be a street Rossi or something like that, you know, this is where it's at. Alright guys, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Have a good day and ride safe. We'll see you next time.